A passion is a musical work composed for Good Friday church services for the purpose of illustrating the last days of Jesus Christ. As a prominent musician and composer based in Leipzig, Germany in the mid-18th century, Bach wrote numerous passions, but one of his most famous has some serious cultural baggage tied to it. Bach scholar Michael Morrison says many music lovers aren't even aware of it.
Many people nowadays don't know the Bible all that well, and very few outside of Germany know German, so they're not really paying attention to, they're not listening for the details of the story, they're just listening for the general magnificence of the piece.
And so they may miss the part where Roman Governor Pontius Pilate asks an angry Jewish crowd if he should set the recently arrested Jesus free. The mob says, quote, "Away with him, crucify him." Morrison says the St. John Passion is Bach's retelling of the biblical Gospel of St. John, which is even more controversial.
A key moment earlier in the Gospel is in John 8, where Jesus is depicted as saying that Jews are liars and killers by nature and by volition.
While Bach's language never gets that blunt, Jews are still cast as villains.
I think we have to make a distinction here between the person Johann Sebastian Bach and the genius Johann Sebastian Bach.
Cleveland Orchestra music director Franz Welser-Möst says Bach and his work need to be seen in the context of their times.
And when you look at the history of Leipzig, and it's very likely, and most historians agree on that Bach never met a Jew in his life.
In advance of this weekend's concert, the Cleveland Orchestra convened a panel discussion about the issues raised by the St. John's Passion. Rabbi Roger Klein noted that such conversations are on the rise in a post-Holocaust world.
Where I doubt if 50, 60, 70 years ago, before the performance of these passions, for example, people got together and had a discussion like that.
And, you know, I had a hard time explaining to some of my Christian brothers and sisters, you know, my spouse has very few cousins, you know, and there's a reason for that. And when we went to the Ukraine together, and it was an extremely palpable sort of experience. In every little town that we went into, including the one that her family was from, there would be a glorious, glorious Catholic church with gold and silver and beautiful pews and just gorgeous in every respect, just like this space here. And then right across the street, there would be a building with no roof on it and all the glass broken and trees growing out of the dirt that had accumulated in the meantime, because there's, you know, the town that we were in, it had 40,000 people, 20,000 had been Jews, 20,000 Christians. Guess what? There's now 25,000 people, not a single Jewish person living there. Just little kids riding around on their bikes and spilling ice cream outside the synagogue. And I thought, wow, that was such a profound effect on me that I just cannot take, it's impossible for me not to take seriously the issues that surround all this, because I see a piece like the St. John Passion. Part of the problem is it's not just a great drama about humanity in general. So this particular story from this particular gospel is about the very foundation of Christianity and the way that Christianity works. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that it's an extremely important thing. And so this is not just some piece. It's about a piece where some people believe what is being promulgated here, and some people don't believe. And yes, it's wonderful, the reaching out and so on that Rabbi Klein was talking about. But in the end, it's very clear from this story, from this culture, that, you know, some people are going to have a blessed afterlife, and others are not. And we know who the ones are not from the story. And you can aestheticize and historicize all you want, but once you start talking about an entire group of people that you say, by definition, is not going to have a blessed afterlife, that's very dangerous.
And issues of anti-Judaism and anti-Semitism are really more prominent than we'd like them to be in the history of Western art music. And it's, you know, it's not just Bach, it's Wagner, it's numerous others.
Wagner is often the name that comes up in discussions about anti-Semitism in classical music. David Rothenberg says, while we can only speculate about Bach's motivations, Wagner's feelings are well documented.
He did not like Jews. He didn't like what they did to music. And we have writings of his, you know, penned under his name about this. So it's a very clear-cut case with Wagner. And it's problematic because he wrote this music, which is in many ways great. He was a great dramatic musician.
Rabbi Roger Klein grew up loving the music of Bach, including the St. John's Passion, and he says he's not about to give it up.
Look, I mean, the first thing to reaffirm is there are some problems in this piece. The piece itself tells us the truth, the greatness and glory of the truth of our world, and the deep and intractable problems. So we count upon our artists to tell us the way things are and not to cover over the parts of the truth which seem problematic to us.
Franz Welser-Möst says he's grown up with a problematic truth that can't be covered up, and that experience has reinforced his belief that we must confront and talk about art that reflects some of humanity's darker impulses.
Of course, with the history of the 20th century, with having had the Holocaust, where also my home country, Austria, has played a big part, that's a baggage we won't get rid of. But it cannot mean that I think, that automatically out of political and politically very, for me, very understandable reasons, we discard great art.
Some audience members said they found the Bach panel discussion to be an unsettling but useful experience.
And so it was grievous to me that there's this, not only anti-Semitism in his music, but what we see in the world, and we just want to make sure this is not being fed.
The anti-Semitism is there, and as they say, it's an ugly part of life and it has to be dealt with, and it might as well be presented.
And David Rothenberg suggests it's more positive to talk about troubling works of art than just banish them.
Because there are great things in these pieces of music, even as there are troubling themes. And I think by working through these issues, by thinking about them, we can probably grow as music lovers, as people, and as scholars of culture. I think it's important for us to think about the role of the arts and culture and understand that it's not just off on the side, it engages in important cultural issues.
And the Cleveland Orchestra continues that cultural conversation this weekend. It will be the first time the orchestra has played the St. John's Passion in over 30 years.